Making a Dungeons & Dragons character is one of the most important and rewarding parts about playing the game. But for the beginner, this can be quite a daunting task with all the different parts and sections, rules, and terms that are involved. Now, it does get easier with the more characters that you create, but for the first time, it can be difficult. But in this video, we're going to take those difficulties away as we walk you through part 1 of a 4-part series, helping you create your first Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition character. So let's get rolling. So as I mentioned earlier, creating a character has a ton of different sections in it, but in this video, we are only going to look at 4, and that is coming up with a character concept, the D&D races, classes, and finally your character's attributes. So what I'm not going to do in this video is help you create the optimized character, which means a character that has the biggest bonuses for the best damage and attacks and the most skills. That is not what we are going for here. Instead, we are trying to optimize your character for role playability because I believe this is what will make you have the most fun when playing your Dungeons & Dragons game. Now, before we really get rolling into the character creation process, we need to make sure that you have the right things on hand in order to be able to make your character. And there's really only a few things, 3 in total, and the first one is the player's handbook. So make sure you have a player's handbook handy. You're going to need some dice to roll for your character, and the last thing that you're going to need is a character sheet. And you can print these off online as well. They come for free. And these other things, if you don't have them, that's okay too. We made a video a couple weeks back showing you how to get these things for free, and I'll put the link in the cards above so you can check that out if you need to get any of these things and do it quickly for free. So maybe dive back there, watch it, and then join me back here for the rest of the video. So now that you've got all your gear ready to go, your player's handbook, your dice, and your character sheet, probably a pencil would be helpful too, we are going to start to take a look at your character concept. And by character concept, I mean a general overview of what your character is like. It doesn't have to be physical description, but I'm thinking more along the lines of what are their habits, their mannerisms, their attitude towards life, and maybe just the beginnings of a backstory, and that's what I mean by character concept. It can be difficult to come up with a character concept just off the top of your head. So I'm going to share with you some of the ways that I get inspiration for making my characters, and I'm going to pick one of them and kind of walk it through for you so you can see what it is I'm talking about. So one of the best places to find inspiration for your character can be from the books, novels, and comics that you're already reading. So if there is a character in there that you particularly like, then pick that character and start to dissect them a little bit. And it can be about the physical parts, but I'm thinking more about what is this character's habits, mannerisms, how does their emotional state, and maybe even borrow some of the backstory that this character has in order to help you with your character. So books, novels, and comics. The next stop for inspiration comes from the television. So look at your favorite TV shows and movies and pick a character from that and start that dissection process to see what makes those characters tick and to port it into your character concept. Now, the inspiration for your characters don't always have to come from fictional sources. They can come from real-life people as well. And so maybe think about famous people, political figures, or even just people in your day-to-day life. Think about what you know about them and what can you steal about their mannerisms, behaviors, and backstory to build into your character. Another place that I go to, and probably one of the places I go to the most to find inspiration for my characters, is just the Google. So we'll go into Google and type in a search for Dungeons & Dragons character art, or maybe D&D fantasy art, or something like that, and you will get a ton of pictures. And once again, just go through those pictures, take a look for one that kind of speaks to you or inspires you. Now, unlike the other examples I gave you where you were taking a character and thinking about the habits, mannerisms, and things and kind of pulling that out, this process is the opposite. So you're going to be looking at a picture and then telling yourself a story about this character. Now that you can picture the character in your head, what do you think that character is like? And maybe what's the starting of their backstory? So before we move into the next section, which is picking a race for your character, I want you to just take a moment, maybe pause the video and come up with a quick character concept for your character that we will use throughout the rest of this video and the other parts of our video series. Now that you have a character concept firmly locked in your head, we're going on to the next part of our character creation, and that is picking a race for your character. Now, that's where we're going to start using the player's handbook, in particular, page 17. So if you go to page 17, all of the races are going to be starting there and listed. It might be worth your time to take 10-15 minutes and read through them. However, if you don't want to do that, I'm going to go through them here in a second, just with a very brief overview. But either way, if you're reading or you're listening to me go over the races, what I want you to do is think of your character concept and then listen to the races or read about the races and see which one is going to fit with your character concept the most. So the first race in the player's handbook are dwarves. Dwarves are known as skilled warriors, miners, and workers of stone and metal. And although they only stand about 5 feet tall or under, they're so broad and compact that they can weigh as much as a human standing nearly 2 feet taller than them. Elves are a magical people that are slender and graceful and almost timeless, living for well over 700 years. Halflings are a small race, standing only about 3 feet tall, and they are very practical. They're also kind and curious, and it's their curiosity which often leads them into adventure. Humans, now they're just humans, and they look like, they kind of look like what humans look like, all sorts of different ways. But as far as what they're good at, they're kind of good at everything and nothing. They're the jack of all trades. Dragonborn are descendants of dragons, and they live in clans who they value even more than life itself. And they can come in all sorts of different colors, and depending on their color, gives them a specific breath weapon, attack, and a resistance of the same type. Gnomes are weird, super positive beings, and their spirits shine even in the darkest of nights. Great inventors, pranksters, and even better intellectuals. However, just like halflings, curiosity is something that every one of them carries, as well as their impulsive behavior, creating excellent and many adventurers out of them. Half-elves combine the best of their human and elf parents. From their human parentage, they get the curiosity, inventiveness, and ambition, tempered by the refined senses of love of nature, artistic tastes of the elves. Half-orcs have orc blood running in their veins, which makes them stronger than normal people, as well as hardier. However, it can also make them act impulsively and sometimes savagely. Tieflings take on all sorts of different forms and colors, and they can have different kind of horns and tails as well. But whatever they look like, they all share the same kind of curse. And these creatures are beings of infernal lineage due to a pact that someone in their long past made with a demon or a devil. So once you've picked a race for your character, you're probably going to read that section in a little more detail, and you're going to find a part in there that talks about the race's racial traits. So it's going to talk about the ability score increases, its age, its speed, and maybe some special abilities that this creature has. And that's all well and good, and it's important information, but just not right now. So the only thing that you need to do now that you've picked a race for your character is grab your character sheet, and on the top there, just indicate what race you've picked for your character. We will come back to this other information later. It's just not super important right now. So now that we have a concept and a race picked out for your character, the next step in the character creation process is coming up with a job or a career path for your character. And in D&D, that's called a class. To find the classes in your player's handbook, you're going to turn to page 45, and they will have them all listed there. Now, once again, kind of like the races, it's probably worth your time to go and just take a general read through the classes to get get an idea of what they're like and what it is that they can do. You could get really lost in here with all the different things that they get and bonuses they have. Don't do that. But what I would recommend is going through and reading the first paragraph or two, or the first section or two in each of the classes to get a really good idea of what it is they are like. And once again, like the races, to help you out, I'm just going to quickly go over them for you so that if you don't want to dive into the book and spend the 10-15 minutes, then you can just listen to this quickly and maybe make your decision. And once again, like I said, think of your character concept in mind and now your race. So what job is your character going to do? Think about that as I go through these character classes. The barbarian is a fierce and primitive warrior who often wears no armor and enters battle in a rage. A bard is an inspirational magician who uses their power of their song and performance to inspire others. A cleric is a priestly champion who wields divine magic to serve a higher power. A druid is a priest of nature and has the ability to adopt animal forms. A fighter is a master of combat, full stop, skilled in all armor and weapon use. A monk is a master of martial arts and is able to perform almost mystical feats through the power of their inner spirit. A paladin is a holy warrior, part fighter, part cleric, and is bound to a sacred oath. A ranger is part warrior, part druid, and combats the threats on the edges of civilization. A rogue is a scoundrel who uses stealth and trickery to overcome obstacles and enemies. A sorcerer is a spellcaster who draws their power from either a gift or from their lineage and bloodline. A warlock is a spellcaster who gets their power through a bargain with an extraplanar entity. A wizard is a scholarly magic user capable of manipulating the structures of reality. So now that you know a little bit more about what the classes are and what they can do, you need to decide which of these classes will best fit the character concept that you came up with at the beginning of the video. And once you've done that, you might go into that section and read a lot more about that class, and that's okay. But really for now, we don't need all of that information. Just like the race, all you're gonna do is grab your character sheet, and right at the top, it's going to ask you for your class, and you're going to write in there what class you picked for your character. And before we get into the last section, which is the attributes for your character and how to figure those out, I want to run you through the first three very quickly with a sample, and that would be the character concept, the race, and the class. So I'm going to get you a sample, and I'm going to use Doctor Who as a sample. Now, this is a TV show, so my inspiration came from a TV show. For my character concept, I want to know a little bit more about what the Doctor is like. The Doctor is smart, wise, almost seems to know the future before it happens, is a wisecracking, joking kind of character that even when things are dangerous, it doesn't seem to faze the Doctor, and is always got a joke for the situation. So that's my character concept. I might even have a bit of a backstory about the Doctor, in that the Doctor's race, he's the last of his race. And so in D&D, maybe my character is the last of their village or of their family, of their clan. So that's going to be my character concept. As far as race, I'm going to pick elf, because the Doctor is thousands of years old, almost immortal. And so for me in D&D, the race that would best suit that is the elf, who can almost live forever as well. Plus, the elf is a smart creature, and I know that because I read the section about an elf. And as far as class is concerned, I'm going to pick wizard, because through reading the section on wizard, I know that one, wizards are smart like the Doctor, they're scholarly like the Doctor, and there is a type of wizard that can almost see the future and know things before they happen, which would really fit my time-traveling Doctor Who character concept. So I hope that gives you a bit of a better understanding of what I'm trying to say in these first three steps. Now, in the last section, we're going to take a look at your character's attributes. Now, in the Dungeons & Dragons game, your attributes are ways to describe your character's physical, mental, and social skills. A character's attributes are divided into 6 sections. They're strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Now, the first 3 kind of define your character's physical characteristics. And strength measures your natural athleticism, how strong you are, how much power you have. Your dexterity is a measure of how nimble you are, how your reflexes are, your agility, your balance. Constitution talks about your health, your stamina, how far you can run before you get tired, how long you can swim before you get tired. Now, for your intelligence and wisdom, that's the mental kind of components or characteristics. For intelligence, you're looking at your mental acuity, how well you can learn things, how well you can recall information. It's your smarts. Wisdom is more about your awareness and your ability to perceive things and your insight into what is going on, or perhaps even social situations. Now, your charisma is your social skill, and it measures your confidence, it measures your eloquence and your leadership skills. It is not a measure of how good your character looks. Now, your attribute scores or ability scores can be anywhere from 3 to 18. 3 being really, really low and 18 being really, really high. Now, let's, as a median point, think of 10 as your average. If you are the average person in all areas, strength, dexterity, con, and so on, then you have a score of 10. So in order to find out what your ability scores are, you're going to have to roll for them. And that's where the dice part comes in. And I need you to get out your 6-sided dice or your D6s. And in particular, you want 4 of them, or you could just take one and roll it 4 times. But I have 4 dice here, and I'm going to roll them. And I got a 5, a 6, and a 1. So what you're going to do is take the lowest of those 4, the 1 in my case, and you're going to put it aside and only add up the other 3. So that is a 5, and a 6. So this is an ability score of 16. Now I'm going to do this process 5 more times so that I will have 6 numbers for all of the ability scores. And I don't have to put them in the order that I rolled them. So the first roll of 16 doesn't have to be for strength, and the next one for dexterity. All you're going to do right now is do that process, rolling 4 dice, taking the top 3 and adding them up, and record it on a piece of paper. Do it 6 times, and then we'll move on. Now, there is one other way in order to determine your ability scores without using dice, and that can be found on page 13 of the Player's Handbook, and it's just called an ability score array. And what they've done is given you 6 standard numbers that you can then use for your ability scores. And it's a 15, a 14, a 13, a 12, a 10, and an 8. So if you don't have dice or you don't want to roll for them, you can just use those numbers found on page 13 for your ability scores. Okay, we're into the home stretch for this video because all we have to do now is take those 6 numbers that you generated, grab your character sheet. You're going to notice that on the left-hand side, there is a section for strength, dexterity, constitution, and they have boxes there, and we have to decide which number goes where. In order to help you decide where those 6 numbers that you just rolled are going to fit into your ability scores, like which of them goes where, we're going to go back to the class that you picked to fit your character concept. Now, I picked Wizard, so I'm going to go back here. But the reason why your class is going to determine where you stick these scores on your character sheet is because each class has an ability score that is really important to it. A fighter needs to be strong, so he or she better have high strength. A wizard needs to have high intelligence for all the research and memorization they have to do, so I'm going to pick a high intelligence there. You kind of get the idea. So go to the class in the Player's Handbook that you picked. So I'm going to Wizard. And in each of the class sections, you're going to have a part that says Quick Build. And in there, we're going to read through, and it's going to tell you where to put your highest score, where to put your next score, and so on. So for my Doctor Who character, the Wizard, it says, under Quick Build, you can make a wizard quickly by following these suggestions. First, intelligence should be your highest ability score. Done. I'm going to put it in as my highest score. Then it says, followed by constitution or dexterity. So I'm going to take that as my second and third. So I'm going to pick constitution as my second and dexterity as my third. And you can already see now I'm halfway done my ability scores, and really it's the book that helped me determine which ones are going to make my best wizard. Once you've filled in all of your ability scores, the 6 of them here on your character sheet, according to what your class says you should, the only thing that's left for you to do is take a look and see if your character's race has any bonuses or modifiers to add to those ability scores. And they do, because they all do. Now, the easiest way to find them is just to turn to page 12 on your player's handbook. It lists all of them there, or you could go into the book and find the page for your character race and find it in there. But I like to go to page 12 because it's all listed for you. So remember, my character is an elf, and so I'm looking through and I can see that my elf gets a +2 to dexterity. So I'm going to go over to my character sheet and I'm going to increase my dexterity by 2. I also notice that my elf is getting a +1 to intelligence. So I will go over and increase my intelligence by 1. And just like that, you're done. You have completed the first step of making your character, and possibly the hardest part, because you've come up with a character concept. No easy feat. You've decided on a race and a class, and you've even rolled for your ability scores and got a handle on what those mean. In our next video, we're going to continue our work with ability scores and start introducing ability modifiers. We're also going to go back to the race that you picked in this video and start looking a little bit more about the traits and abilities that your race is going to give you. And we're also going to calculate something called hit points and start taking a look at your class more in depth. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, do us a favor and hit that like button down below. And if you were creating a character along with us, then I'd love to hear what that character is. Put that in the comments section down below. What's the character concept that you came up with? What's the race? And what's the class that you picked? If you want to learn more about playing or DMing Dungeons & Dragons games or anything else D&D related, then start right now by clicking that subscribe button and the bell so that you don't miss a thing. Thanks so much for watching part 1 of our 4-part series on creating your first D&D 5e character, and we'll see you in part 2 next time.